Are you doing everything right with your money but still feeling stuck? What if I told you that some of the financial habits you think are smart might actually be keeping you broke? From paying off your mortgage too early to misunderstanding how credit cards really work, these common personal finance traps could be silently sabotaging your wealth-building journey. And trust me, what the average person does with their money might be completely opposite to what the rich are doing. You don't want to miss this if you're serious about achieving financial freedom and growing your wealth the right way. Today, we're exposing 7 financial mistakes that look smart and why the wealthy avoid them at all costs, but are quietly keeping you broke. Let's break them down one by one. Number 1. Paying off your mortgage early. Most people think paying off their mortgage early is the best move to get ahead financially. We all want to be debt-free, right? But the wealthy approach this a little differently, and here's why. Meet Mike from Denver. For years, Mike was putting an extra $700 a month toward his mortgage. His goal? To be completely debt-free by the time he turned 50. Sounds smart, right? But then, Mike did the math with his financial advisor. And that's when things changed. He realized that if he invested that $700 in index funds, it could grow to $900,000 by the time he retired. Compare that to the $120,000 he'd save on interest by paying off the mortgage early. So why is this a game changer? By putting his extra money in the market instead of locking it up in his house, Mike made his money work for him. Here's the thing. Your house might be valuable, but it's not something you can easily access for cash when you need it. To tap into the equity, you'd have to sell or refinance. But with index funds, Mike's money grows year after year, and he can access it anytime without needing to sell anything. The wealthy understand this. Not all debt is bad. In fact, they use low-interest debt, like a mortgage, to let their money grow faster in places where it can earn more, like the stock market. So, while paying off your mortgage early might feel like a responsible move, it could actually be costing you a lot in potential growth. Number 2. Keeping too much money in savings. Here's the truth about saving. While it's important to have a cushion for emergencies, keeping too much money in savings can be a financial trap. Here's why. When we talk about saving, most people think of a savings account in a bank. It's safe, it's easy, and it's always accessible. But there's a big catch: inflation. Inflation is the increase in prices over time, meaning your money buys less today than it did yesterday. So, let's look at the numbers. Right now, inflation is around 4%. What does that mean for your savings? It means that every year, the purchasing power of your money is decreasing by about 4%. So, the things you can buy today with 30 million Cuban pesos will cost 31.2 million Cuban pesos next year, and so on. Now, think about the interest your savings account is offering you. A typical savings account might give you around 1% interest, maybe even less. So, while inflation is working against you, the 1% interest in your bank account isn't enough to keep up. It certainly isn't growing your money. In fact, if your money sits in that savings account for 10 years, it's actually losing value. Here's an example. If you have 30 million Cuban pesos today, in 10 years, because of inflation, that money would only be worth around 22 million Cuban pesos. You'd have lost about 8 million Cuban pesos, just because it's sitting in your savings account and not working for you. On the flip side, if you decided to invest that 30 million Cuban pesos in something like a low-cost index fund, which historically averages around an 8% annual return, you could turn that 30 million Cuban pesos into 65 million Cuban pesos in 10 years. Now, that's a huge difference. Instead of losing money to inflation, you're growing your wealth by nearly double the original amount. So, the moral of the story is this: saving is important, especially for an emergency fund that covers 3 to 6 months of living expenses. But any extra cash you have beyond that should be put to work in investments that outpace inflation. Otherwise, it's like you're sitting on your money, letting it slowly lose value without seeing any benefit from it. In short, don't let your money just sit there. Let it grow. Number 3. Thinking your primary home is an investment. Owning your own home is a dream for many. And while it's great for building stability and creating a comfortable life, you shouldn't mistake it for a wealth-building tool. Let's look at Sarah and Jason from Boston. They bought their dream home thinking it was a smart financial move. But 5 years later, they realized something surprising. They had spent 175,000 Cuban pesos on their home, including the mortgage, property taxes, maintenance costs, and repairs. After those 5 years, the home had only appreciated by 75,000 Cuban pesos in value. Now, consider this. They could have rented a similar house for 2,000 Cuban pesos a month, and instead of tying up their money in the house, they could have invested the difference. A friend of theirs did just that, rented and invested the money he saved. After 5 years, that investment grew to 110,000 Cuban pesos, far more than the appreciation on Sarah and Jason's home. So what's the lesson here? Your primary home is not an investment. It's a place to live. Sure, it might go up in value, but when you factor in all the expenses, like mortgage interest, property taxes, insurance, and upkeep, it's not the moneymaker you think it is. True investments are things that generate income, like rental properties, or appreciate freely, like stocks or index funds. Your primary home, on the other hand, locks your money in one place and requires you to spend more just to maintain it. To be clear, owning a home gives you comfort, security, and control, but when it comes to building wealth, there are better options out there. Number 4. Avoiding credit cards completely. You've probably heard it before. I only use debit cards. I avoid credit cards because they're dangerous. Sounds like a responsible choice, right? But what if I told you that avoiding credit cards altogether could actually be costing you thousands of pesos every year? Here's the thing. Credit cards, when used wisely, offer a lot of benefits. Many cards give you 2 to 5% cash back on every purchase. So, if you spend 1,000 Cuban pesos a month, that's up to 600 Cuban pesos back in your pocket each year. Free money, right? But it doesn't stop there. A strong credit score, something you build by responsibly using credit cards, opens doors to lower interest rates on loans, better deals on insurance, easier approvals for renting a home, and even job opportunities in some cases. The key takeaway here is that credit cards aren't the enemy. It's misusing them that causes the problems. If you're carrying balances and paying high interest, that's where the issues start. But if you pay off your balance every month and spend within your means, credit cards can actually be a powerful financial tool. So, instead of avoiding credit cards entirely, it's about learning to use them smartly for rewards, building credit, and unlocking opportunities that would otherwise be out of reach. Number 5. Over-contributing to retirement accounts without flexibility. It's tempting, right? You hear, max out your retirement accounts, and think, that's the way to go. But here's the catch. All that money is locked away until you're almost 60. And let me tell you, that can be a problem. Imagine this. You come across an incredible investment opportunity. Maybe it's a chance to buy into a new business or a real estate deal that could double your money in just a few years. But here's the issue. You can't access the cash because it's all tied up in your retirement accounts. If you want to take it out early, you'll face heavy penalties and taxes, which could take 35% or more of your funds. It's a classic situation. You have the money to make moves, but because of the way it's saved, you're stuck watching the opportunity pass you by. Here's a better strategy. Contribute enough to your retirement account to capture your employer's match. This is free money. Most employers offer between 3% and 6% match, so take full advantage of that. But don't stop there. Invest the rest of your savings in other places where the money is liquid and easy to access. For example, you can invest in a brokerage account, real estate, or other assets that allow you to make moves when opportunity knocks, without waiting for years to access your funds. The bottom line is that having flexibility is just as important as saving for the future. If your money's all tied up and you miss opportunities, it could set you back decades. So, don't just focus on building your retirement fund. Make sure you've got liquid assets ready to work for you now. Number 6. Paying off low-interest student loans too fast. Fresh out of college, the instinct is strong. I need to pay off my student loans ASAP. But here's the problem. That approach may not always be the best use of your money. Take Jessica's story, for example. She inherited $30,000 and, feeling the pressure to be debt-free, she used it all to pay off her student loans. On paper, it felt great, no more debt. But her roommate? She invested that same $30,000 in an index fund. Fast forward a few years, and while Jessica is now debt-free, her roommate's initial $30,000 has nearly doubled to $60,000. Now, let's break it down. Jessica paid off her debt, which was good in a sense, but she left behind a huge opportunity for wealth growth. Her roommate, on the other hand, kept making minimum loan payments since the interest rate was low, but invested the inheritance. In the end, while Jessica was debt-free, her roommate was wealthier, even though they started with the same amount of money. So, if you have low-interest debt, don't feel rushed to pay it off at the expense of other financial goals. Low-interest student loans typically have interest rates around 4 to 6%, while historically, the stock market has averaged returns of 7 to 8%. This means you could potentially earn more by investing than you'd save in interest by paying off your debt early. That doesn't mean you should ignore your loans entirely. Always make sure you're keeping up with your payments. But instead of focusing on paying them off aggressively, you might be better off using your extra cash to invest. Let your money work for you and grow faster than the interest on your loans. The key takeaway here: if your student loans have low interest, consider investing rather than rushing to pay them off. It's a smarter strategy for building long-term wealth. Number 7. Taking advice from the wrong people. Imagine you're trying to get in shape. Would you take fitness advice from someone who's out of shape? Probably not. So why take money advice from people who haven't actually built real wealth? Let's talk about Tom. He had a dream of starting his own business. But every time he mentioned it, his well-meaning in-laws, who had worked 40 years in corporate jobs, discouraged him. They told him how risky it was and how he should stick to the safe path. Tom listened to them, took the advice, and stayed in a job he hated. But years later, Tom found out something shocking. His in-laws, who had preached about job security, were actually in serious debt. They had been stuck in a financial rut for years. Finally, Tom decided to ignore their advice and took the leap to start his business anyway. Guess what? Today, Tom is earning more than ever and living the life he truly wanted. The lesson here: always look at results before listening to advice. Opinions are cheap, but results speak louder. Just because someone has strong opinions about money doesn't mean they know what they're talking about, especially if they haven't actually achieved the financial success you're after. So when seeking financial advice, ask yourself, does this person have the results I want in my life? If not, maybe it's time to find someone who's actually walked the walk. Don't let others' fears or limited thinking hold you back from reaching your financial goals. And there you have it, the 7 money mistakes that could be secretly sabotaging your path to financial freedom. Now that you know what to avoid, it's time to take control of your finances and start making smarter decisions that actually build wealth. Remember, it's not about working harder, it's about working smarter with your money. The wealthy are playing by a different set of rules, and now you know exactly what those rules are. So, ask yourself, are you ready to break free from the money traps that are holding you back? If this video helped you see things differently, hit that like button, subscribe, and share this video with anyone who needs to hear this. Drop a comment below and let me know which of these financial mistakes surprised you the most or which one you've been guilty of. I'd love to hear from you. And if you're not already on the path to financial freedom, now's the time to start. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep building that wealth.